The Grand Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive crystalline structure that had stood for 10,000 years. Inside, representatives from 57 species gathered for what most considered another pointless meeting. The younger races talked loudly among themselves, their translators creating a buzz of overlapping voices. At the center of the chamber, Elder Kron stood slowly. His species, the Watchers, had been among the first to achieve space travel. Their gray skin bore the marks of countless centuries, and their 4 eyes had seen the rise and fall of empires. But nobody cared about that anymore. "The Council recognizes Elder Kron of the Watchers," the automated system announced. The chatter continued. Kron's voice was deep and steady. "I bring a warning to this Council. The humans of Earth have achieved faster than light travel." A few representatives laughed. The traders, with their golden scales, found this particularly amusing. "The humans?" Their speaker, Vex, said with obvious disdain. "That primitive species from the outer rim. They barely left their planet 50 cycles ago." "They are not what they seem," Kron continued, his 4 eyes scanning the room. "We have observed them. We have studied their history. This species is different." The warriors, massive beings covered in natural armor, pounded their fists on their desks in amusement. Their leader, Rex, stood up. "Different? They are weak. No natural weapons, no armor, fragile bodies that break from a simple fall. They die from their own sun's radiation." "That is precisely why you should fear them," another elder spoke. This was Mora of the Ancients, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights. "We have seen this pattern before. Species that survive despite weakness become the most dangerous." But the younger races weren't listening. They never did. The elders had become relics in their eyes, old fools clinging to outdated fears and forgotten wisdom. "The humans have 1 ship," Vex said, pulling up a hologram. 1 experimental vessel. Meanwhile, the traders have 10,000 warships. The warriors have 50,000. Even the smallest member of this council could crush Earth in a day. Kron's eyes dimmed with sadness. "You see their tools, but not their nature. Humans are persistence hunters. On their world, they would chase prey for days, never stopping, never resting, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. They apply this same persistence to everything." "Stories," Rex spat. "Myths to make weaklings seem strong." Elder Mora tried once more. "Their history is written in blood and recovery. They fought wars that killed millions of their own kind, then rebuilt stronger. They poisoned their own atmosphere, then found ways to clean it. They split the atom and pointed it at themselves, yet survived. No other species has shown such capacity for both destruction and recovery." The council erupted in laughter. The younger races had heard enough. The vote was called, and by overwhelming majority, humanity was classified as a Level 1 species, minimal threat, suitable for conquest or trade exploitation. As the representatives filed out, planning their various schemes to profit from this new, weak species, the elders remained seated. They exchanged glances that spoke of centuries of experience, of patterns recognized, of warnings ignored. "How long?" Mora asked quietly. Kron calculated. "If they follow the usual pattern of first contact exploitation, the traders will try to cheat them within 1 cycle. The warriors will test their defenses within 2. Someone will make the mistake of attacking their colony ships within 3. And then? Then the galaxy will learn what we already know. Humans don't conquer through strength. They adapt. They learn. They endure. And most terrifyingly—" Kron paused, remembering the human histories he had studied, the wars that had shaped them, the disasters they had survived. "They unite when threatened." The elders sat in silence as the chamber emptied. Outside, the younger races plotted and schemed, seeing only opportunity in humanity's apparent weakness. They couldn't see what the elders saw, that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to turn weakness into power, to transform every attack into a lesson, every defeat into future victory. The warning had been given. It had been ignored. Now, all the elders could do was wait and watch as the galaxy learned its lesson the hard way. The trader ship Golden Prize arrived at Earth's primary space station exactly one cycle after the council meeting. Captain Vex himself had come, seeing an opportunity for easy profit. The humans who greeted him were smaller than most species, their pink and brown skin looking soft and vulnerable. They smiled constantly, showing their small, blunt teeth. Everything about them screamed, prey species. The human ambassador, a middle-aged woman named Director Smith, welcomed them warmly. "We're honored by your visit, Captain Vex. Humanity has long hoped to join the galactic community." Vex's scales shimmed with satisfaction. This would be easier than he thought. Of course, of course. The traders are always happy to welcome new partners." He drew out the last word, already calculating his profits. The negotiations began simply enough. The humans showed interest in trader technology. Standard engines, basic shields, simple energy weapons, nothing impressive by galactic standards, but centuries ahead of human technology. "We offer you these technologies," Vex said grandly, "in exchange for exclusive mining rights to your system's asteroid belt and, shall we say, 90% of your rare Earth element production for the next 100 cycles." Director Smith's smile never wavered. "That's quite steep, Captain. Perhaps we could discuss more equitable terms." Vex laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "Equitable? You have one ship. We have 10,000. You need us. We don't need you." The human's smile finally faded. She looked at her aide, a young man who had been quietly taking notes. He nodded slightly. "I see," Smith said quietly. "May I ask, Captain, are you familiar with human history?" "Irrelevant." Vex waved a clawed hand dismissively. "We once had nations that thought like you," Smith continued. "They offered unfair trades to those they saw as weak. They called it colonization." She stood up. "It didn't end well for them." Vex rose too, towering over the human. "Are you threatening the Trader Confederation?" "No," Smith said simply. "We're declining your offer. We'll develop our own technology. It may take longer, but we prefer to remain independent." The captain's scales turned deep red with rage. "You reject our generosity? You'll regret this, human. When the warriors come for you, when pirates raid your colonies, don't come crying to the traders for help." As Vex stormed out, he didn't notice the young aide speaking quietly into his device. He didn't see the subtle nod Director Smith gave to the security chief. He didn't know that every word, every threat, had been recorded and transmitted to Earth's newly formed Defense Council. In her office afterward, Smith met with her advisors. "Analysis?" "They confirmed what we suspected," the military advisor, General Johnson, said grimly. "The galaxy sees us as prey. They'll come for us, one way or another." "Then we do what humans have always done," Smith replied. "We prepare, we adapt, we survive." "The traders mentioned pirates," the science advisor, Dr. Lee, noted. "If their confederation won't sell us technology—" "Pirates might," Johnson finished, "for the right price." Smith nodded. "Begin Operation Bootstrap. If they won't trade fairly, we'll find other ways. Monitor all frequencies for pirate activity." "And Dr. Lee?" "Yes, Director?" "That trader ship scanned our station thoroughly. I want our best engineers to analyze those scans, figure out how their technology works. If we can't buy it, we'll reverse engineer it." As the humans began their work, the Golden Prize departed Earth space. In his cabin, Captain Vex sent his report to the Traitor Confederation. Humans are prideful and foolish. They rejected our generous offer. Recommend economic isolation until they learn proper respect. The message was intercepted and decoded by Earth's intelligence service within minutes. Humanity now knew they were alone, surrounded by hostile powers who saw them as nothing more than resources to exploit. But humans had been alone before. They had been surrounded before. They had been underestimated before. And they had always found a way to survive. 2 cycles passed quietly. The galaxy largely forgot about the humans, busy with their own affairs. The warriors had been fighting border skirmishes with the Hive, a collective insect species. The traders continued their commerce. The various middle powers played their political games. Earth seemed to have gone silent. Their one ship was occasionally spotted doing simple cargo runs between Earth and their small Mars colony. Nothing threatening, nothing interesting. Commander Rex of the Warriors was bored. The Hive conflicts were too easy, too predictable. He wanted a real challenge, something to blood his younger warriors on. Then he remembered the humans. One ship, he mused to his second-in-command Tank. One pathetic cargo vessel. It would be good practice for the younglings. Tank agreed eagerly. Should we take their world? No, Rex decided. Just their ship. A lesson in respect. Show them their place in the galaxy. The attack came without warning. The human cargo ship Endurance was traveling between Earth and Mars when 3 warrior vessels dropped out of hyperspace. They were sleek, predatory things, bristling with weapons. "Human vessel," Rex broadcast from his command ship. "Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Captain Roberts of the Endurance responded calmly. "This is a civilian vessel on a peaceful mission. We have no quarrel with the warrior empire." Rex laughed. "You have no choice. Surrender now." There was a pause. Then Roberts spoke again. "I need to consult with my crew. Give us 5 minutes." "You have 2. On board the Endurance, Roberts turned to his crew. They weren't really civilians. Every human in space these days had military training. Earth had learned from that first meeting with the traitors. "Options?" Roberts asked. "We can't fight 3 warships," his weapons officer said, "but we can send a message." Roberts nodded grimly. "Do it." As the 2 minutes expired, the Endurance sent out a burst transmission, not to Earth but everywhere. Every frequency, every direction. The message was simple. Footage of the warrior ships attacking an unarmed cargo vessel along with all relevant data. Then they surrendered. Rex was pleased with the easy victory. He brought the human crew aboard his ship as prisoners, planning to ransom them back to Earth. The humans came quietly, 20 men and women in simple jumpsuits, looking terrified. "See how easily they break," Rex told Tank. The elders worried about nothing. But Tank was looking at the prisoners more carefully. Despite their fearful expressions, their eyes were alert, scanning, memorizing. One of them, a young woman, was counting under her breath. Another was studying the warriors' weapons. "Sir," Tank said uneasily, "something feels wrong." Rex dismissed his concern. "You're imagining things." The Endurance was towed back to a warrior outpost as a prize. The crew was imprisoned, awaiting ransom negotiations. Rex sent a message to Earth demanding tribute for their return. Earth's response came 12 hours later. It wasn't what Rex expected. "This is Director Smith of Earth Defense Command. We don't negotiate with pirates. You have committed an act of war against humanity. Release our people immediately, or face the consequences." Rex laughed so hard, he almost choked. Consequences? From one ship? But across human space, things were already in motion. The broadcast from the Endurance had been received not just on Earth, but on Luna, Mars, and the dozen hidden stations humanity had built in the past 2 cycles. More importantly, it had been heard by others. The pirates came first, not to attack, but to trade. They had monitored the situation and saw opportunity. Captain Darkfang of the Shadowclaw pirates contacted Earth directly. "Humans," his message said, "the warriors are our enemies too. Perhaps we can help each other." Within days, 3 pirate vessels arrived in Earth space, not to raid, but to sell. Weapons, shields, engine technology, all the things the traders had refused to provide. The prices were steep, but humanity paid without complaint. What the pirates didn't know was that every piece of technology was immediately taken apart, studied, and replicated. Humans had always been good at reverse engineering. Within weeks, Earth's factories were producing copies, crude at first, but improving rapidly. Meanwhile, in the warrior prison, the crew of the Endurance waited. They seemed like model prisoners, quiet and compliant. The warriors grew lazy in their watch. They didn't notice the woman who had been counting was memorizing guard rotations. They didn't see the man studying their weapons was calculating weaknesses. They didn't realize that what looked like fearful huddling was actually planning sessions. 3 weeks after their capture, the crew of the Endurance escaped, not through violence but through patience and observation. They had learned the patterns, found the weak points, and waited for the perfect moment. 20 humans disappeared into the night, taking with them detailed intelligence on warrior defenses, weapons, and tactics. Rex woke to alarms and empty cells. His rage was terrible, but it was too late. The humans were gone, vanished into the criminal underworld of the frontier, making their way slowly but steadily back to human space. And on Earth, in hidden shipyards and secret facilities, humanity was building. Not one ship, but dozens. Crude by galactic standards, but improving with each iteration. The warriors had made their mistake. They had given humanity an enemy and a reason to unite. The lessons were being learned, the galaxy notices. 6 months after the Endurance incident, strange reports began filtering through galactic communication networks. Pirate raids on warrior supply lines had increased dramatically. The attacks were different from usual pirate tactics, coordinated, precise, targeting specific cargo. The warriors blamed the usual suspects, but the pirates denied involvement. "Not our style," Captain Darkfang told anyone who would listen. "Too organized, too patient." Then came the mystery of the ghost ships. Trader vessels reported being scanned by unknown craft that appeared and vanished before they could be identified. The ships didn't attack, didn't communicate. They just watched and learned. In the council chambers, the younger races grew uneasy. "Has anyone heard from the humans recently?" asked the Speaker of the Miners, a silicon-based species that rarely involved itself in conflicts. "Who cares about humans?" Rex growled, still furious about the escaped prisoners. "They're probably hiding on their pathetic world." But Elder Kron, who had remained silent for months, finally spoke. "No, they're learning." The room turned to him. "What do you mean?" Vex demanded. "Check your trade routes," Kron said simply. "Count the pirates who've gone silent. Notice the technology that's appeared on the black market. Crude copies of trader shields, modified warrior weapons, hybrid engines that shouldn't exist." The representatives pulled up their data, and slowly the pattern emerged. Someone was buying everything, stealing what couldn't be bought and copying what couldn't be stolen. "Impossible," Rex said. "The humans have no infrastructure for this." "They do now," a new voice said from the entrance. Everyone turned to see a figure they didn't recognize. A human, in a black uniform, standing confidently, despite being surrounded by potentially hostile aliens. "I'm Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet," the human said. "I'm here to deliver a message." Security forces moved to arrest him, but Chen held up a hand. "I wouldn't do that. Check your sensors." The Council's defensive systems suddenly lit up with warnings. 50 ships had appeared around the station, seemingly from nowhere. They were ugly things, cobbled together from various technologies, but their weapons were powered and aimed. "Impossible!" Vex shouted. "We would have seen you coming!" Chen smiled. "You did see us. You've been seeing us for weeks. We learned your sensor patterns, your blind spots. We've been right under your noses, watching, learning, preparing." Rex roared and charged at the human bee, but Chen didn't flinch. "Commander Rex, before you do something you'll regret, you should know that the 20 crew members you captured have been very helpful. They memorized your combat techniques, your weaknesses. Would you like a demonstration?" Chen moved with surprising speed, using Rex's own momentum against him. The massive warrior crashed into the wall, stunned more by shock than injury. A human had just thrown a warrior. "How?" someone whispered. "We studied you," Chen said simply. "All of you. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your prejudices. The traders think only in profit, so we became unprofitable to attack. The warriors respect only strength, so we became strong. Not in the way you expected, but strong nonetheless." Elder Mora stepped forward, her crystalline form chiming softly. "What do you want, Admiral Chen?" "Recognition," Chen replied. "A seat on this council, fair trade agreements, respect." "And if we refuse?" Vex asked, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Chen's expression hardened. "Then we disappear again. But we won't stop learning. We won't stop building. And every time you attack us, we'll come back stronger. That's what humans do. We adapt. We survive. We endure." "You're threatening the entire council?" Rex said, getting back to his feet. "No," Chen said. "We're offering you a choice. Accept us as equals, or spend the next century looking over your shoulders, wondering when we'll appear next, wondering what we've learned, wondering what we're building." The silence was deafening. The younger races looked at their displays, at the 50 ugly ships that had appeared from nowhere. They weren't impressive by galactic standards, but the fact they existed at all, that they had appeared undetected. "The elders were right," someone murmured. Crone stood slowly. "The council will vote, all in favor of granting humanity provisional membership." One by one, hands and appendages rose, not enthusiastically, not happily, but pragmatically. The humans had proven their point. As the vote concluded, Chen's stern expression finally softened. "Thank you. Earth looks forward to peaceful cooperation with all species." "And if someone attacks you again?" Rex asked. Chen's smile was sharp. "Then they'll learn what you learned, Commander. We don't start fights, but we finish them." The human ships powered down their weapons and pulled back, disappearing as quickly as they had appeared. Admiral Chen walked out of the council chambers, leaving behind a room full of very thoughtful aliens. The Elder's prophecy. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed. Humanity held a permanent seat on the council, their ambassador working alongside species that had once dismissed them. Their trade networks expanded rapidly, their technology advancing at a pace that made other species nervous. But it wasn't their growth that truly disturbed the galaxy. It was what happened with the swarm. The swarm was ancient, a hive mind of billions that consumed entire systems. They had been dormant for centuries, but something had awakened them. They poured out of dark space like a plague, overwhelming the frontier worlds. The warriors threw their entire fleet at them and were pushed back. The traders tried to negotiate and were ignored. Even the mighty shields, a species that had never lost a defensive battle, were forced to retreat. In the emergency council session, panic reigned. "We must evacuate the frontier sectors," Vex argued, "save who we can, and retreat to the core worlds." "Abandon billions to die?" Rex countered, though his own forces were exhausted. "What choice do we have?" the SHIELD representative asked. The swarm adapts to every weapon, every tactic. They're unstoppable. No, Elder Kron said quietly. Not unstoppable, just unstudied. Allies turned to him. You have a solution? Not me, Kron said, his 4 eyes turning to the human ambassador. But perhaps they do. Ambassador Smith stood. She was the same woman who had negotiated with Vex 2 years ago, now representing humanity on the council. We've been analyzing the swarm's patterns. They're not invincible. They're predictable. Predictable? Rex scoffed. They've defeated everyone. Because everyone fights the same way, Smith replied. Direct confrontation, overwhelming force, traditional tactics. But humans, we have experience with a different kind of warfare. She activated a hologram showing the swarm's advancement. They're like locusts from our world. They consume everything in a straight path. But locusts can be defeated, not through strength, but through denial. Speak plainly, Vex demanded. Scorched earth, Smith said simply. We evacuate the planets in their path, then destroy everything useful. No resources, no biomass, nothing to consume. We make their advance cost more than it gains. That's insane, someone shouted. Destroy our own worlds? Temporarily, Smith corrected, while our main fleet does something else. She changed the display. The swarm has an origin point, a home. While they advance, they leave it less defended. A small, fast force could strike there. Suicide, Rex said flatly. No one could survive that. Smith's smile was grim. Humans have a saying. It's not about surviving. It's about making sure the enemy doesn't either. The council erupted in arguments, but Elder Mora raised her hand for silence. You're proposing to sacrifice human lives? We're proposing to do what humans have always done, Smith replied. Whatever it takes to protect our home. But we won't do it alone. This threatens everyone. We need the warrior's strength, the trader's resources, the shield's defenses, together. Together, Kron repeated slowly. The young and the old, the strong and the clever, united against a common threat. His eyes grew distant. The ancient prophecy spoke of this. When the devourers return, only the youngest race could teach the others to survive. 3 days later, the largest fleet in galactic history assembled. Not just warships, but evacuation vessels, construction ships, and supply craft. Humans commanded the overall strategy, their experience with total war and desperate survival guiding the coalition. The evacuation was massive. Entire populations moved from the swarm's path, while small teams destroyed everything left behind. The swarm found only empty worlds, stripped of resources. Their advance slowed, confused by the lack of resistance and sustenance. Meanwhile, a strike force of mixed species led by human tacticians pushed deep into swarm territory. The battles were brutal, ships were lost, lives were sacrificed. But humans had learned something from their history. Sometimes victory required accepting losses. The strike on the swarm's home was devastating, not because of superior firepower, but because of human creativity. They didn't try to destroy it with weapons. Instead, they introduced a simple virus, designed not to kill but to disrupt. The hive mind's perfect unity became its weakness. Confusion spread through billions of connected minds. The swarm didn't die, but they retreated, pulling back to their space to recover, to adapt to this new threat. It would be centuries before they tried again. In the aftermath, as the coalition fleet returned, battered but victorious, the galaxy saw humanity differently, not as conquerors or warriors, but as survivors who had taught others to survive. Elder Kron stood before the council one last time. You asked why we feared them, he said to the younger races. Not because they were strong, but because they make others strong. They unite the divided. They find victory in defeat. They turn weakness into power. Ambassador Smith stood beside him. "We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it. Together." The Council voted unanimously to create the Galactic Defense Alliance, with Earth as its strategic center. Not because humans were the strongest, but because they understood something the others had forgotten. Sometimes the greatest power isn't in standing alone. It's in standing together. Years later, when new species joined the galactic community, they would ask about humanity. How had such a weak species become so central to galactic security? The elders would smile and tell them the story. How the galaxy learned that true strength wasn't in natural weapons or advanced technology. It was in the willingness to learn, to adapt, to sacrifice, and most importantly, to unite others. And somewhere in the archives they kept the recording of Elder Krone's first warning, now taught in schools across the galaxy. Humans don't conquer through strength. They persist, they endure, they unite when threatened. The galaxy had learned to listen to the elders, but more importantly, they had learned to respect humanity, not for their power, but for their spirit. The spirit that turned a single ship into a fleet, enemies into allies, and weakness into the galaxy's greatest strength.